Dveikus, the root of the word is Dveik, translated as attachment. In modern Hebrew, Devek can be glue. Davak is to cleave or attach oneself, as in a man cleaving to a woman, his woman. Or cleaving onto God, attachment to God. Dveikus is the state of attachment with God, oneness with God. I don't know the equivalent in Hindu terms or Buddhist terms, but I'm sure they all have their terms for, maybe nirvana. I don't know, but in Hebrew it's Dveikus, and that's attachment, cleaving onto God. The ultimate Dveikus would be to be able to give one's life up for God. And Dveikus, Dveikus is attachment to God. I'm with God. It can ultimately, Dveikus, to its highest level would be a complete sensory deprivation where I don't see, I don't feel, I don't have my own existence. I'm just in the existence of God, right? I mean, one of the Hasidic Rebbes, when he was praying, they would find him in different corners of the room, like I'm saying, you're not supposed to move when you pray. When you're in the silent Amidah meditation prayer, you don't move. But he was in a different state, and they'd find him in different corners of the room, banged up, scratched, bloody, I don't know, like he he left his body. He wasn't here or there, you know what I mean? Where was he? I don't know. But I'm saying there's a concept called Dveikus. It's attachment or cleaving onto God. Ideally, you're in Dveikus all the time, realistically, at least while you pray. Really realistically, for today's age, I think we've given up on that. We've given up on this idea that we can cleave to God and actually be in that consciousness 24/7. My reason for saying that we've given up on that ideal is because today a Jewish man rarely, it's hard to find a Jewish man who even wears tefillin, the phylacteries, all day. There are some, but the majority of Jewish men do not wear phylacteries all day. We only wear it during the morning prayers. Why? Because we don't have the ability to contain our minds and our thoughts and maintain a purity of thought, purity of consciousness. And because you cannot be wearing the tefillin with such thoughts in our heads, we don't wear tefillin all day. But that's a proof. It shows you that we don't even have the expectation to maintain a clear mind throughout the day, 24 hours a day. We obviously don't have the expectation to live in Dveikus all the time. So ideally, yeah, you'd be in Dveikus all the time. Realistically, at least while you're praying. I would add on to that. I'm saying all this. I'm making all of this up, but not really, but whatever. But I'm saying I would add to everything I've said that ultra realistically for people in our day and age, we can't even expect to be in Dveikus during prayer. I'm saying we all have phones. We're all wondering about this and that. Our businesses, families, whatever you have in your life. But it's very common to walk into a house of prayer and see someone on their phone, right? So I'm saying it's not even realistic that we maintain Dveikus even during prayer. Where it is essential and where every person is required, this is the one place where you have to achieve Dveikus, and you have to have at least the intention of Dveikus, that God is everything, God is infinite, God was, is, and will be. God is the master of all, right? The unity between the 7 levels of heaven and the earth, right? Just all these different concepts you're supposed to have in your brain, be meditating in your mind on these concepts, at least if you can't manage the whole prayer to be in this mindset of Dveikus, at least with the one verse of Shema Yisrael, Hear O Israel, at least with that verse, you're supposed to have that intention, that concentration, and that meditation, and be in that state of Dveikus. And you're supposed to be willing, and at that point, to actually give up your life. So, I'm not saying that Dveikus is something that we can all strive for and attain 24 hours a day. Even during prayers, I don't know if it's realistic. What I would say is at least during the Shema, the Hear O Israel that we say in the morning and the evening, right? At least then you should be able to achieve some level of Dveikus. Although if you're living your whole life in disarray and chaos, it's going to be very hard to focus and concentrate on God even just for a few seconds, it's going to be very hard because you're not living that life. So the more you're involved with it, probably the easier it is, right? Okay, well, I want to tell you that Dveikus is the point of everything. Like, what we're really striving for, what we're doing, yes, it's to submit our will to the will of our Creator. But what are you really trying to do is you're trying to have Dveikus, this cleaving, this attachment to God. Us, our soul, bonded with God. And I think you can make a fair point that it doesn't really matter how you get there. Meaning, you can have a Jew who lives his whole life doing everything wrong and nothing right, but in the last moments he gives his life for God. He will probably achieve that level of Dveikus, of that connection and cleaving to God. He got there. How did he get there? Through sin, but he got there. Another guy might get there by living their whole life by the books, and that's how he got to his cleaving of God. I can't tell you one is right and one is wrong. I can tell you the guy who lived his whole life cleaving to God has all that, meaning he lived a fulfilling life. It's not just that his last moment was fulfilling towards him, his whole life was fulfilling towards him, so that's a big difference. But in terms of the Christian way or the Islamic way or the Hindu way or the Buddhist way or the Jewish way, if they can actually get to a place of Dveikus, I'm here to raise the issue and say, who cares? Maybe not. Maybe let them. Why not? Why do we care how they get to Dveikus, to Nirvana, or whatever you want to call it? But to get to that essential thing of Dveikus, I'm cleaving to God, where I don't exist and it's just God. Being in the presence of God. Dveikus, attachment, cleaving. Why do we care how Christians get there if they can get there? If you're talking to a Christian, they can claim that that's what they're aiming for, the same thing we're aiming for, that they can actually get there. Why do we care? I'm saying if they tell me that they're using Jesus as a stepping stone to get them to a place higher than Jesus, where Jesus doesn't exist, and they're connecting to the infinite oneness of creation and Creator, I'm asking you, what's the problem? So the problem for a Jew is it's idolatry. God told you how to do it. You can't, even if you think you figured out another way to get to God, if he told you how to do it and he told you not to do it other ways, you can't go against God's will. But I'm saying, if they're a heathen, let's say, they don't really care about God's will. They just want God selfishly. The whole thing's a contradiction, meaning you're going against God's will in order to get to God. It makes no sense. But let's say you have a guy like a Christian today. They telling you that they don't think they're going against God's will. They really believe they're not going against God's will. They really believe they're getting to the same Dveikus that we're getting to. So why should we care how they get there? Because we know it's wrong, because God said not to do it that way, or because you think they're not actually getting to Dveikus. If you think they're not actually getting to Dveikus, that's a separate conversation. But if you do believe them that they're getting to a state of Dveikus, the question is, so why do we care how they get there? Because it's forbidden? They don't think it's forbidden. So what are we going to, I don't know. It was just an interesting thought. Like Muslims too, by the way. Muslims have their own ideology and their own theology. I'm sure they're also trying to get towards Dveikus. At least some of them. Maybe the Sufis or whoever. But I'm sure someone in the Muslim world is trying to connect to God in the way that we are with Dveikus, yeah? So what do we care how they get there? Like, if they have to kill all the Jews to get there, I'm saying obviously you have to protect your own life and take care of your own life, but why are you judging the guy how he got there? Obviously it's a retarded question. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate for a little bit. Why do I care? If you would ask me, I care because he's doing things that are objectively wrong to get to some place that he hopes is right. I mean, just trying to raise the issue. Why does it matter to us that Christians are doing it wrong, or Muslims are doing it wrong, if they really are truly, in fact, after the same Dveikus that we're after? Who cares how they got there? The answer is, for a Jew, it matters how you get there, because God told us how to get there. For a Goy, a Gentile, I don't know if it matters how they get there so much to us, meaning to them, yeah, they're doing wrong things, they don't know that. But is it really my job as a Jew to correct them, to tell them the truth? Maybe not. To educate them, if they're willing to listen, maybe. Beyond that, probably not. But I don't think it's hurtful either to speak these things and let them know they're wrong, because I'm saying the view that Christians and Muslims have towards Jews is so corrupted and so twisted. I think someone should stand up to them and put them in their place. Like, Christians are pagan, so are Muslims. They're also pagan. But I'm saying the haughtiness that the Christian has to look at the Jew who they're trying to replace and belittle us and call us pigs and call us, spawn of Satan, and to tell us that they're the Israel that's mentioned in the Bible, and it was always talking about them, and they were God's ultimate plan. I'm saying the haughtiness of a Christian with the fact that their ideology is so basic and elementary, like wrong. It's just wrong. It goes against the very word of God. It's a very immature theology. It's not deep in any, not like so deep. It's really not. I'm saying if it was that deep, they wouldn't need an idol. The fact that they need an idol is because it's not that, because they're shallow people. They can't have the concepts of Judaism without it being contained in a pagan container. They cannot hold on to the essence of Judaism without putting it in a foreign container of idols and idol worship and idol holidays, and everything is idolatry. Why? Because the light of Judaism is something they couldn't hold on to without the container of foreign pagan immaturity, okay? So I'm just saying, like, maybe it doesn't matter too much, and we don't have to correct Christians or Muslims. I'm saying if a Muslim is blowing up whatever, or a Christian is, doing something, equivalent, yeah, we need to stop them. It doesn't mean we need to fix their ideology, and maybe that's the only way to actually fix their actions, is to fix their ideologies. But without getting into, like, if they're doing wrong or good in the world, I'm just trying to figure out, in essence, is there a reason to be concerned with what Christians think or Muslims think? And my answer is no, it doesn't really matter to us. Unless you can positively influence them for change and educate them, which is most likely not the case. But if it were, maybe you should. But again, I'm giving another reason why it's like maybe a worthwhile endeavor. I just think the Muslims and Christians got out of hand. Like, I think they're out of hand. They're too haughty, they're too cocky. Their beliefs are immature, and someone should show them that. Someone should show them that their belief in God, their whole ideology, their whole system of religion, it's oppressive and it's immature. They think they're the good guys in history and that Israel is the big bad wolf. Like, no, they have to understand, Christians and Muslims were the bad guys in history, not Jews. And our ideology and our theology is actually the basis of their whole system. They only just corrupted it. And if we're going to compare systems, we have the perfect system. They have the system that can't, it can't stand in the light. You shine a little bit of light on it, all the lies fade away. So I think it's worthwhile having these discussions, even if, because I started asking, like, if the Christian's going to get to Dveikus, why not let them get to Dveikus through Jesus? And my answer is, someone needs to put them in their place. It's not about how they're getting to Jesus. It could be, is important how do they got to, if they're using Jesus, let's say we're talking about the Christians for a second. These Christians are using Jesus to get to God. Why do I have an issue with that? Besides for the fact that I believe it's wrong and it's idolatry and that's not God's will. Besides all that, I think someone needs to put them in their place. I think they're too haughty. Christians are haughty, and the way they look at Jews, it's not fair. It's not logical. We are actually the ultimate logical, religion and way of understanding God. They came and corrupted it and now belittle us and look down at us for how we look at God. But the truth is, they have the elementary, immature version of our God, and we have the ultimate real experience. So that's why I care. If you're a Christian, you can ask me, why do you care how I get to Nirvana, how I get to Dveikus? I care because your whole way of doing it is built on lies and immature understandings. And you look down upon me for the way I do it. But I'm not doing anything wrong. In fact, you are. You're going against God's will as a Christian. And you have an immature version of God as a Christian. You have an immature understanding of the Bible as a Christian. Not me. If you enjoy my videos, you should send me money from time to time. For me, once a week would be pretty good. Every day would be better. But you could send me $1, you could send me 5, you could send me 100, 1,000,000, you could send me whatever you want. But I would like to have some consistent money. I'm saying there's a nice part about not having any consistency, because you're like always, you don't know exactly where anything's coming from. I guess you could say you're more dependent on God. I would not say that I see it like that when I'm out of everything and I don't have a way to get a cigarette or a beer. I wouldn't say I turn to God. I mean, maybe I do. Maybe I put out a prayer. Probably I do, but I don't know. Some people are into that. Hardships make you more religious. I'm like over that. I think I've had enough hardships and it never made me religious. And at this point, I just need comfort. So I'm saying it would definitely make me a lot more comfortable knowing that every day I have money coming in. Like, yeah, I'm going to wake up. I'm going to be able to go buy a beer every day, you know, or a pack of cigarettes. I definitely have a much more settled mind when I have the things I need and it's consistent, that I have them every day a pack of cigarettes and beers, you know. Maybe for you it's food, but I'm saying, you can look at me, I'm saying I don't have too much flesh, you know. I'm not exactly like a big eater. That's not, it's like for most people, if you would ask them what their essentials are other than a bed and a shower and clothing, it's food, right? I'm like any other drug addict. Food is the last thing I'm thinking about. The last thing I'm thinking about. The first thing I'm thinking about is a cigarette. Second thing I'm thinking about is probably a beer. Third thing I'm thinking about is a joint. You know? What should it be? I guess God. I should be thinking about God. But let's be realistic, okay? Because we're not in the biblical times and we're not in the narrative of creation times. We're in the year 5,700, 88, 89? I have no idea what year we're going into. 5,000. Actually, it matches. 2025 would be 5,785. So this year should be 5,786. I think. So it's like we're so far distance removed. You know, idolatry started, by the way. Idolatry started, according to Maimonides, Rambam. He writes how it had happened. He says, in the generation of Enosh, including Enosh himself, these people got like a great idea. Like, yo, God, in his wondrous ways, created so many, like, agents and servants, including the sun, the moon, the stars. They all are servants of God. They all worship God, and they're all part of God's plan, and he's created all of them. But they're his servants. So just like the king would want his subjects to honor his servants, right? If, the minister of whatever came to your town, and you were living under a king, you would be required to give honor to that minister because he works for the king. And if you dishonor him, you can be killed by the kingdom because you dishonored the king's minister. So too, they said, okay, so we should honor these ministers being the celestial spheres, the stars, the moon, the whatnot, I don't know, constellations. And they did this. They built, altars and what do you call it? Churches, mosques, whatever. They built these places of idolatry, places of worship. Temples. That's what I was looking for. Temples. They were built to these temples, and the thing you bring a sacrifice on. I just said it. I forgot the word already. Altars. Yes, altars and temples to the stars and whatnot. For good intentions. In their mind, they figured, listen, we're worshiping God's ministers because we're giving respect to God through his ministers, okay? Now, eventually, they forgot about God and they just got left with the idol part of it. They were just worshiping these idols. They forgot about God. Over the generations, they stopped worshiping God. They just only worshiped the ministers, okay? The closer you were to God, the more you knew, the more you remembered, the more you just actually knew. Later on, they don't know, they don't remember. What did they have? They have the idols that their parents told them to worship, right? That's how Maimonides explains idolatry. I mean, it's very fascinating to, just think about how that kind of process, Why were they wrong? Because God told them not to worship idols. I mean, this was before the giving of the Torah, so I don't know how much they were commanded at that point, but so you could argue what they violated, if they violated anything, I don't know, but where they went wrong was they went against God. God wanted to be worshipped alone, not his angels and his ministers. Yeah, you give them honor because you're honoring God, not because you're honoring them. Once you start honoring them and holding them up, that is literally Jesus. Like, you know, I was saying, what did the Christians claim? Like, we're honoring the Father through the Son or whatever. Now they're holding on to the Son. They forgot the Father, in my opinion. I mean, they still say Father, you know, hallowed be thy name. But they do say the Father. But, I don't know. They made an idol. Pretty much they made an idol just like the early generations made an idol. It's very funny to me that Christians are so attached to Jesus because I don't get the appeal. I'm saying if I could offer you, if you were to offer me or any other Jew, I think, maybe not any other Jew, but I think if you would offer me as a child or now or any like if I just walked up to a Jewish child in the street and I told him, listen, I can give you Judaism and all the heaven and all the reward and all the satisfaction and everything positive about Judaism, and you won't have to do any of the commandments. From now on, you won't have to do any of the commandments. You'll have it all for free. I think most Jewish children, for sure me as a child, and now I would take it, even though it makes no sense, because if you didn't earn it, you can't have the satisfaction. That's just the way it... Huh? Okay. So I'm saying you can't have that satisfaction that you earned anything if you didn't earn it, right? But let's just say someone could offer me Judaism without the rules. I would for sure take it in a heartbeat. So I'm offering Christians Christianity without Jesus. Why don't they want that? Like, give up your idol. You could still have Christianity. You could still have God. You could still have everything good. You could still have Dveikus. You could still have Nirvana. Whatever you want to call it. You could still have everything. Just give up Jesus. Why don't you take it? Like, I would give up all of Judaism as long as I can keep the Judaism if I don't have to do any of the commandments. So why don't you guys give up your Jesus and just keep your Christianity, which is essentially at that point you just be Jewish or following the Jewish religion without... Do you get what I'm saying? Just strip it bare of all its vessels, containers, and just keep the light that's inside. Like, I'm not asking you to give up the light inside, the thing that you are actually holding on to. Like, you think you're holding on to Jesus, but that's just a metaphor. You're not actually worshiping Jesus. You're not that dumb that you'd worship a human. Saying, even if I asked you, tell me the truth.
My 5 says as the bite הפוך, בלגן, אביא לך מיץ ענבים, תעשה לבד, בסדר?
Cool.
אני יוריד לך מיץ ענבים.
Okay.
בוא, תבוא, אני גר שם.
Cool.
סורי.